Lyndon Stiles is sentenced to death by injection of a powerful poison. A priest calls on a man to confess to killing 11 people, but the former military man denies his guilt. The man is injected with a substance and the doctor pronounces the man dead. But sometime later, Lyndon opens his eyes. He comes to his senses in some kind of a bunker. A stranger invites him to agree to an experiment which is important for the defense of the United States. If the man refuses, they will carry out the death sentence for real. The sergeant wants to know the details of the experiment, but they only tell him that if he survives, he will receive a new name, place of residence, and a lot of money. Lyndon sees no way out and decides to agree. He is placed in a glass box with heavy security. After a while, a female doctor comes to him and is supposed to take tests from him. Lyndon notices that the woman is very afraid of him. The sergeant explains that he is not responsible for the deaths of 11 people. He is sure that he was set up to drag him into this experiment. During his service, he refused to kill a foreigner, and because of this he was expelled from the army and framed in this matter. The doctor does not believe him because in the US this is simply impossible. She takes a section of his skin and hair, then tries to leave, but Lyndon catches her hand. He wants to know what will happen to him, but the doctor cannot help. Meanwhile, scientists go to a secret laboratory where they demonstrate the remains of alien bodies. They are faced with the task of trying to make their DNA as compatible as possible with human DNA. 6 months ago, an unidentified object was spotted over Utah and was shot down. After the wreckage was found, it became clear that it was only a small shuttle and the interstellar ship was somewhere nearby. There was almost nothing left of the aliens, and it turned out to be impossible to make models of their appearance. Moreover, their DNA is similar to human DNA. The doctor doubts the experiment because it is unknown how this will affect Lyndon's body. They explain to her that such an experiment has already been performed on a monkey and it lived for almost 3 weeks. People are thinking about the possibility of military conflict with aliens, which means that humanity needs to know their vulnerabilities. The doctor goes to see Lyndon when the general who was his commander during the war also arrives. The military man regrets that Lyndon disobeyed his orders and made one of their last missions public. The doctor announces to Lyndon that he will be injected with DNA of extraterrestrial origin. This makes the sergeant laugh, because he doesn't believe in such things. The general gives the command to start the experiment and says goodbye to the sergeant. Lyndon is tied to a table and the substance begins to be injected. After some time, Lyndon begins to change. He experiences terrible pain and constantly vomits. After many days of suffering, the doctor assures that there will be no more injections. Lyndon repeats the same thing over and over again, that he did not kill anyone. After some time, the man shocks the doctor with strange appendages on his palms. It becomes clear that alien DNA physically affects the human brain and changes the body. Lyndon constantly feels pain, so the doctor is going to give him painkillers. The woman is worried about his obsession with his innocence, and she suggests that the military pretend that they admit it. Suddenly, Lyndon loses consciousness. Doctors rush to him and inject him with adrenaline, but there are no signs of life. Electrostimulators also do not help, and the doctor documents death. Everyone has already come to terms with this, and then Lyndon opens his eyes. He has no pulse. The sergeant moves the doctor's hand to his stomach, where his new heart now beats. Now there is no pain either, and Lyndon asks to confess that they believe in his innocence. His hearing has become so sharp that he can hear all the conversations around him. The man learns that the doctor's name is Helen. Time passes, and Lyndon changes a lot. The man endured a lot of pain, but now he can do much more than ordinary people. He can easily withstand overload or very high pressure. His strength is 5 times more than an ordinary man. Scientists conclude that the aliens have very strong bodies, and they also hear and see perfectly. But one day, the man cannot stand the imprisonment. He removes his sensors. Then he jumps out of his glass cage and escapes from the base. However, it turns out that this is the second phase of the experiment. The general raises his troops and declares a hunt. Helen understands that Lyndon was deliberately allowed to escape so that they could now hunt him. Meanwhile, Lyndon gets out into the forest and sees his reflection in the river for the first time. He reminds himself of lines from the Bible. He was deprived of his body, but not his soul. At this time, the military arrives in the forest. They are given the order to find and neutralize the fugitive and are allowed to fire to kill. The military begins to look for him, but the man disguises himself perfectly. It turns out he can make sounds that demoralize people. The sergeant manages to capture one of the military men and lift him up a tall tree. Using his radio, he contacts the general and admits that he understood his plan. He will not kill anyone because now he understands people better than when he himself was a man. The sergeant leaves the prisoner on the tree and runs away. Soldiers track the signal and rush to this sector. They notice a figure in a tree and shoot one of their own. Helen is sure that this experiment will not bring anything because Lyndon is still a man, but they do not listen to her. The military continues to check the forest, but Lyndon skillfully evades pursuit. He even manages to capture the general. The man orders him to tell the military who he is. The general is forced to give his name and say that he was framed by the military and the government. The soldiers listen to the speech, and at this time Lyndon throws a grenade between them and runs away. The night is coming. Helen returns to her tent, where Lyndon unexpectedly arrives. He is not going to hurt her. Helen says that she knew nothing about the purpose of the experiment, and now she is in danger. She no longer believes in his guilt and is ready to help return him to his human form. Lyndon leaves, but Helen catches up with him in the forest. She persuades him to try a substance that will reduce the influence of alien DNA. Lyndon makes an appointment for the morning and leaves. They meet at the designated location and Helen pulls out a syringe. Lyndon realizes that there is no medicine there. There are at least 20 snipers around, keeping them at gunpoint. The woman betrayed him. Helen asks for forgiveness and begs to have mercy on her. There is no turning back. He will never become human again, and there is a sleeping pill in the syringe so that he does not feel anything. Then the sergeant shouts to the general to let the doctor leave. He does not intend to hurt anyone and gives up. Lyndon throws down his weapon and the military gets very close to him. He advises the woman to leave slowly and be mindful of her safety. Lyndon is told that the experiment is over and he has lost, but the sergeant does not think so. He won because he never became a killer and he still has a soul. The general gives the command to get ready and take aim at him. The military carries it out and prepares to shoot the former man. But suddenly, a sharp sound is heard, and out of nowhere aliens appear, who look just like Lyndon. They silently look at the people who threw down their weapons. One of them goes straight to the former sergeant and looks into his eyes for a long time. Then he puts his hand on Lyndon's shoulder and they disappear together. The rest of the aliens also disappear and people are left standing in bewilderment. And then Helen realizes that it was not people who experimented on aliens. These were aliens who were testing people. And humanity has not passed these tests.